So the burner phones are dirtied up. They have, you would ground your child for life for the things that are on there. They're the worst of the worst conversations, but they have to be believable. So that, just like you said, which has happened before on operations, a trafficker, pedophile, a client, someone will, they're brazen, right? They don't have any qualms about looking at your phone, checking you out. It's the only way to vet you. It's the only way to see if you're real or not. One of the only ways. So they take the phone, they look through the phone. Well, there it is. This couple that's presented there in their hotel room or the location that they're meeting, this couple is actually a couple. They're crazy for each other. They're hypersexualized, and the texts and the expressions on the phones reflect that, absolutely, and has to. And then after the operation, the burner phone very appropriately and necessarily is swiped, and it should be. It's not needed anymore. It's fake. It's a script. It's the role. So why hold on to it? You don't need it. But some operators held on to the burner phones or didn't swipe the phone or scrub the phone. They didn't turn it in. They held on to it. Some, as Celeste is saying herself on the video, stay in the role emotionally or psychologically. They continue to live the role outside of the operation. Tim is in role, then Tim is out of role. They may be in role and then out of role, but maybe their heart or emotions are still in role. And so they're either enamored or infatuated or still motivated, and they want to go on another op. They want to have that connection again. They want to have that excitement, that James Bond kind of experience.
Okay. Welcome aboard. Hi, Janet.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a long day. I just helped my wife unload some groceries and put some in the wash. Oh, by the way, those of you who don't know Janet Russon, I've had her on the program once. But been my friend for, what would you say, 6 weeks?
6 weeks, I think. Yeah,
probably something like that. Maybe the beginning of November.
Oh, we have an anniversary.
Yeah. We're
a Genesis date.
Yeah, I think we've known each other for about 6 months and a half. So Janet Russon is the they call her the psychic, but calls herself the sidekick. And I think others have given you that name.
Others have given me that name. I don't know if I call myself anything except
I know that.
Janet.
I mean that in a good way, that she's been there with Tim since day one, right? For about 10 years.
Almost. 10 years.
Well, let me introduce you. How about I do that?
Okay.
Janet Russon is a native of Connecticut and calls both Connecticut and a home. She is married to Richard Russon, who she fell in love with at BYU. They are the parents of 9 children, many of whom are adopted. Janet attended colleges Coast and London before transferring to BYU soon after her baptism into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She fulfilled a Spanish-speaking mission for the church and taught at the MTC for 3 years until graduation. Though her major at BYU was humanities, she also studied German, Spanish, Japanese, and English.
A little Scotia Japanese.
What is that? Scotia?
A little.
Oh, okay. And my son Nicholas is actually interested in that. He's been trying to learn Japanese. The internet.
Good for
from
him.
YouTube.
He'll probably do better than I did at BYU.
What's that?
He'll probably do better than I did at BYU.
We'll see. You know what? I'm going to tell him too. Maybe you guys can have a little conversation.
Okay.
Janet loves languages and learned French out of necessity, as 6 of her children are from French Polynesia. She enjoys learning and reading any subject, but especially literature, languages, geography, history, and culture. She finds peace in written expression and spends quite a bit of time each day writing. Her career has been varied and includes working as an office manager, landlord, apartment manager, ski instructor, figure skating director and coach, Spanish teacher, translator, consultant, executive at OUR for Children Need Families, and director of strategic alliances also at OUR. Janet is a passionate advocate for vulnerable children. She has been involved in the adoption and foster care space for 20 years and the work of anti-human trafficking for 10 years professionally. She has served on several boards in volunteer capacities as well as neighborhood chair, district, and state delegate. Her favorite activities are usually enjoyed with her husband and family, including snow skiing, both downhill and Nordic. She's also a figure skater. She plays tennis, hiking, biking, traveling, and talking. She loves to talk and takes walks. Started writing 3 years ago. Yeah. And you adore her. He adores her Arabian mare, Coco Chanel.
Coco Chanel.
Coco Chanel. Sounds like a perfume.
It is. She's a designer. She was a designer.
Well, there you go. Janet cherishes her husband, children, her family, and extended family, her church community, and friends. She considers it the greatest blessing to have this earthly opportunity to experience life's joys and challenges together. Can I add something?
Yes.
And obviously, she cares about people and children, and especially children who are in dire needs of our help and our rescue. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you for having me. Troy,
So,
I want to put in a plug for you. Troy's a wonderful, as you know, because we're talking to your audience, wonderful human being. We've gotten to know each other's families, as Troy has said before, over the phone because we're talking daily, almost every day for the last 5-6 weeks. And your wife, Andrea, your sons, our day-to-day, as well as the topics that we're going to talk about today and other topics. And then we've had some conversations with some survivors, and we'll have some other people on that are well known to your audience and also who've been part of OUR. But Troy, the reason why I should tell this quick little story, the reason why I contacted you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the reason why I contacted Troy was because in the midst of the litigation and all of the information in the media, my husband was following all of it. We have other people that are following it that I would get information from. I didn't follow it in total at that time, but I had followed most and was reading most or many of the articles. You can't keep up with everything that's out there and every podcaster. But I came across Troy and considered it very serendipitous. You could say it was a blessing that I came across Troy and was listening to him. And then my husband and I would listen to your podcast, Troy, and we just knew that you were hitting the points and you were accurate. And I kept saying to Richard, I've got to contact him and let him know that he's accurate. And perhaps then then it evolved, perhaps that we would talk and I could help fill in some of the gaps, which has been a long time coming, that decision to come on and reveal some things. So thank you for being the honest, righteous, good, funny, fun person that you are, and very talented at what you do.
Thank you. Likewise. Uh, I I think I really felt, I mean, podcasters, YouTubers, influencers, content creators, journalists. I'm not a journalist, but I we do things because A, people want to hear about it. It's in demand, or it's trending. Uh, One of the main reasons I followed it and wanted to continue, because I made like 27, 26 videos about it, is because I think when I saw Tim in front of that statue, where was that again?
The Monument of the Forefathers, it's in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and it's definitely a hidden gem. When people go to Plymouth or they go to Massachusetts, then they should definitely go to that monument. And let me put in a quick little plug. There's a docent at the Jenny House, and oh, I'm forgetting his name. I think it's anyway. We'll get his name in there, but there's a docent. He dresses up like a pilgrim. He's an amazing man, and it is worth your time to get a hold of him and go to the monument. It's all about faith and virtue and
We'll leave a link
good
or
things.
something.
Okay.
Remind me to, what, I'll write it down right. But anyway, so
So Tim was at the Monument
yeah,
of the
and I was
Forefathers.
watching that.
And I was there also. I was on that trip, that covenant
Were
tour.
you like behind the camera or something?
Yeah, where there's the side where you can see the monument, and then I just stepped away.
Okay, so anyway, I was watching that, and one thing that came to my mind is nobody would be out there saying that the way he's saying it. If these women were telling the truth, or, it was kind of new, so we didn't have all the things that are going on today right now with the case, but just listening to him and the way he was stomping his feet, and then even as it progressed for a few weeks, I would turn to my wife and I'd go, not once has he said, talk to my attorney. And most people that are trying to hide something will say, talk to my attorney, or they stay out of the limelight. His main focus was still rescuing children. He would go on podcasts, and that's the main thing he wanted to talk about. And not afraid. He's like, what do you want to know? I can look you in the eye and tell you, I'm still the guy.
Correct.
I'm still wanting to do the right thing. I'm still going to bring awareness to people, because one thing that you said, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun because we'll get into this, and maybe this is a good segue to begin, was the awareness bringing stopped.
Yes.
So go ahead, Janet. Let's begin. You want to start there with that, maybe?
Yeah. In fact, you just triggered a thought or spawned a thought, which then segues into what I'll share. So we have to think. Let's think big picture. And I know your audience or audiences, because I know you're on several platforms, or your podcast is shared.
I'm on Twitter now, by the way, guys. X.
Awesome.
Anyway, go ahead.
That's good. That's big. And I would like to invite everyone to share this podcast, share the information that you learn today and on subsequent podcasts, because we're not going to be able to cover everything today. But please share it. We want people to know. I, as a mom, as a woman, as a person, I feel that everyone deserves to know the whole story, the complete story. So here's that other part of the story, or I'm going to give you an ample part of the story that you haven't heard yet. And everybody has common sense. Everyone has that inner compass, and they can take this information and it will either resonate or not, but the truth always resonates. So this has been hard for me to do, to come on here and share this, but it's the right thing to do. You deserve to know. I would want to know if I were on the other side of it, but I've lived this, I've been living this, and I've been in this space and associating with Tim on a regular, consistent, daily basis for a long time. So I know these people, I know them well, meaning Tim and Catherine and those at OUR. And even though I'm not at OUR, I love and support the organization.
And they still love and support you guys.
Yes. And you're not doing wrong by donating. I still donate to OUR, and we're going to talk about that as well. I want to say, anyone, this is the thought that you prompted to come to the forefront of my mind. Anyone who's been in this work, like Tim has, for 10 years in OUR and 12 to 13, 14, 15 years before that. So 23 to 25 years he's been in this space. He's been immersed in it. And anyone that has been around Tim knows that he is passionate. And some people's passion ebbs and flows for a cause. His has been high and consistent all this time. I've never seen him not passionate. And of course, Catherine is the foremost expert on Tim. And I'm sure, I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but she could testify the same. But seeing him in a professional capacity and often, regularly, consistently, his passion has never waned. He's immersed in this work. Just like you said, the rescue of children, the reconnaissance work or finding of children, all the ways to find them. Where are they? All the ways to rescue, all the partners to work with to rescue children. Who else can we contact? Who else can we work with? Let's reach out to them. How can we support them? It's usually him wanting to support other organizations and then working together. OUR is the #1 premier, largest anti-human trafficking organization in the world. And I don't know as far as stats for rescue, if they've rescued more than any others, but they've rescued thousands and thousands, 7,000 to date. And I just want to say that when a person is that dedicated for that amount of time, it's like the 10,000 hour rule, except it's the billion hour rule. He lives it. He wakes up, he goes to bed with it, he sleeps it, he doesn't sleep a lot. And that permeates, I was going to say, and so does the rest of the people that are around him. It just permeates his associations. I mean, that is his life's work. Besides his family, that is his focus. So you can't go from having that immense immersion in it to being selfish and self-gratifying.
Right. And you hear a lot in the news that these numbers are fudged. It's 7,000. They're not fudged.
They're not fudged. And let me speak to that. So I'm glad you brought that up. So the number on the OUR website is 7,000 rescues. But let's just multiply that, because what OUR does is they actually, oh, you know what? I don't have my headset in. Do I need it? No. Okay. What OUR does is they're likely to underreport. They accurately report. OUR is very particular about statistics, and I want to talk also about the management of money. Squeaky clean, absolutely clean. And the audits show that, and the investigation shows that closed. But OUR wants to do that for OUR, whether or not there are other eyes on it. So the numbers, 7,000 rescues, Um, but what OUR doesn't do is double up on numbers. So, for example, going into another country, let's say Thailand. You go into Thailand, we assist in a rescue, multiple rescues in Thailand, but let's just use one simple example. We assist in a rescue, but using top cover, which is always the case, meaning in-country law enforcement, in-country operatives, as well as OUR operatives, because we have an office. OUR has an office in Thailand. So they do that rescue. But let's say that's a helped rescue, or that's an assisted rescue. OUR operatives assisted top cover. They're not going to count that number. Let's say 14 children were rescued. I'm just giving an arbitrary number. 10, 12, 14 children, even one. They're not going to count that number, and then Thailand counts that number too. It's
Right.
going to be reported accurately. So you can easily say that there are more than 7,000 rescues of children that OUR did as an organization and helped or assisted. Yeah.
I believe it. I've always believed. I mean, it's, I couldn't, you went and saw the movie, right? Sound of Freedom.
I've seen it since it was finished. I saw it for,
Well,
5 years.
well, but what I mean, did you sat in the theater?
Many times, 3 different cuts as well.
It was amazing. And the people because I live in California, a lot of the people I live around are Hispanic. And so most of the people I were in the theater with, my wife and I, were from Mexico or Central America or South.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a dry eye in that in the theater. And I just want to tell you the feelings that people had. The reason I brought up how sad it is that, because we've talked about it before, you and I, about how the work stopped.
Yeah. Or has been halted or stalled.
Or has been halted, right?
Yeah.
That
they're still
we
rescuing.
went from this momentum and this awareness and people just on an ultimate high that was for good and righteousness to a satanic depression of the work.
So my thoughts have been, throughout this whole ordeal. Well, let me go back a step and we'll hit on this again. But, we just came out of at OUR. I say we because I still feel emotionally, psychologically, part of OUR, but I'm not employed by OUR. In fact, let me just say this. I'm not employed by anyone. I'm not getting paid for the podcast. I'm not getting paid for anything. The last 3 months when we traveled with Angel Studios and promoted the movie, The Sound of Freedom in Latin America and other areas, that was not paid. Tim was not paid. His head of security was not paid. His executive assistant was not getting paid. And we all did that of our own volition. That was of our own volition, so that we would not use donor dollars to go out traveling and promote the movie. So I just want to make that clear to people as well.
Yeah, because you hear a lot of crap out there, propaganda. You hear a lot of baloney about how you guys got filthy rich.
Yeah,
all the money
not true.
that you made from, which is
not true. Not true. Yeah. So we had just come off of at OUR an investigation from Davis County District Attorney's Office that lasted 2.5 years, and that finished. And then there was another upset on the heels of that, and then the movie broke, and then this. So I want to make this point to your point about opposition. What has gotten buried? Talking about the halting and stalling of rescues and the work of OUR, the work of reaching out to other alliances, other NGOs, collaborating, etc. This is a big distraction, and a very, very sad distraction. So what's gotten buried under this discussion of Tim, OUR, the lawsuits, et cetera, is that Tim testified to 2 congressional committees regarding trafficking of minors and the southern border. Those were powerful, impactful testimonies in front of 2 separate congressional committees. That was in September, I believe. This was not the first time that he testified. And if we remember, he was also part of the White House, the first and only White House Committee on Anti-Human Trafficking under President Trump. And then that was dissolved under the Biden administration.
Why was it dissolved, by the way? But what was their reasoning behind that?
I don't know.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a
crazy.
great committee of very intelligent men and women.
Right when he came in, they just decided to annihilate that, huh?
Yeah.
That's horrible. Go ahead.
After those 2 congressional testimonies, excuse me, Tim discussed in a press conference outside of the Capitol, I believe, the need for new legislation, which he and others were authoring, to find 85,000 missing children, missing unaccompanied minors who had crossed the border over the last 2 years into the United States. Missing, completely unaccounted for. This is a big deal, and it was talked about quite a bit. But all of this discussion, what I'm just referencing, has been silenced. No one's talking about that. Also, of course, at the Monument of the Forefathers on that trip, back east, he announced or soft announced or inferred that he was considering running for the Senate. And all of that was on the heels, as we were talking about, the release of the movie Sound of Freedom and it becoming a box office smash hit worldwide, breaking records and bringing unprecedented awareness to trafficking of minors. So I pose the question, which is obvious. Is it a coincidence that these exhaustingly long allegations and Tim's announcement, the movie release, and the false church statement all came at the same time?
Yeah.
Right? That's
what I've been putting together over. Yeah. That was my whole journey. Crazy.
Yeah. Now, I know you've talked about the church statement, but I'm just going to touch on it because
I
called
go for it.
Okay, I called again today.
Oh, yeah. But I definitely want to say it again. It's funny how you and I called. She told me, go ahead, tell it just real quick. You said you called the church office building, and I did too. And they said the same thing to us. I even said it in one of my videos, and I showed her. I go, Janet, I had the same experience. She said she called, and they said, just between you and I don't really think it even came from us. And the people, whoever it was, we kind of just said they sounded like maybe a woman, maybe in her 40s, very nice, very sweet, but kind of said it in a semi-whisper, almost like, I'm not supposed to say this, but not like she wasn't supposed to say it, but just like, hey, you know what? By the way, my opinion, I don't even know if it even came from us. Right?
Right. So I've called a total of 5 times. And, at different times since that statement came out. But I was with Tim and others, and we called right after that statement was made. And as you and I've talked about, the person on the other end of the line, which was we called the PR department of the church, said, this is not a church statement. We loved him. We don't know where it came from. And when I called today, because I wanted to be current, and I wanted to share today, if I got the same response, which I expected to and did, I wanted to share that was the same response that I received. It was a different person. And as I've called over the 5 times, a couple of times I received the same person on the other end of the line, but today was a different person. And she said, it is not a statement from the church. I said, my question has been, is it an official statement or an unofficial statement? And she said, it is not an official statement or unofficial statement. And I said, do you know where it came from? And she said, no.
That's what I was saying, Janet, is that It could very well be, this is my hypothesis,
Mhm. Oh, I asked her that question, what you're about to say.
that maybe Vice just did it because they knew that the church wouldn't come out and call them liars.
I didn't ask her that.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I
What were you
I
going to say?
said, is this a in response to was this in response to a request for comment? And she didn't know. She said, I don't know. So that's that on that statement. I mean, that's unprecedented to name someone, etc. But I just wanted to share that.
Whether it did come out, whether it was a request for comment or whether it wasn't, we'll never know, because the church will never come out and say whether it happened. You'll never see anything. Well, I'm not saying never, but you don't see now anything on the church website saying that happened. People are like,
Correct.
well, yeah, but they took his video down from a few years ago. They were supporting him. Well, that could be because he was going to run for. It could be many different reasons. It could be that
Right.
he was under a lot of an umbrella of scrutiny, and the church wants to distance themselves, obviously, from anything like that, whether it's true or false. They don't want to get in that controversy. So to say it was because he did something wrong is just not an accurate statement. So whether he did or didn't, I mean, whether the church gave the request for comment or not, we'll never know. And Vice can say anything they want because they probably knew that would happen. We'll never know unless Doug Anderson tells somebody someday in a expose or like some biography.
Interview or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to break your chain of thought. You were talking about.
Oh, I was just
Okay.
reiterating. It just it's just opposition. I mean, like you were saying, there's this momentum, there's this tsunami of awareness. And when we were traveling in Latin America, as you said, in the theaters, where you are in California, there wasn't a dry eye. I mean, the theaters were packed. And we were doing screenings and VIP screenings to packed theaters all over Latin America. And then we would leave that country, go to the next country, and they would release the movie the next day or a few days after. But people, of course, they loved the movie. They were anticipating it coming out, and it broke records everywhere. And that needs to be revived because it is a true and an effective and powerful message and education on what trafficking looks like and what anti-human trafficking can look like also, and does look like. And that movie is based on the inspiration for that movie are three true stories, three operations woven together into one story. So it's
Like Hollywood always does with
awesome.
true story. They take a lot of different things, they compile it together to present a feel good message that really
Mm-hmm.
happened. War movies are like that a lot. Uh, yeah, that's not uncommon.
Right.
Uh, take somebody's life, mesh that we could say, well, I mean, it's based on a true, based on a true thing, based on true stories. Wasn't wasn't supposed to be, if that would take 20, you'd have to do 20 movies to tell every story, every experience
Every
that Tim
aspect
had.
of each of those three operations. Yeah. But it is so close to it is so close to the original operations. So based, as you're saying, could be a small percentage. It could be 10% based on the true story, and then there's a lot of creative license, or it can be the 90th percentile, which is what Sound of Freedom is. So yeah. Um, I think the big thing that I want people to know, which I touched on before, is that the stories and allegations portrayed in recent lawsuits and media are misleading and incomplete. So it's important for people to have the whole truth, the whole story. And it would be wonderful if the women in the lawsuits were to include all of the details, the of the I just said of the twice, of the preparation for an operation, the non-disclosure agreements that they signed, the discussions that they had, the checking and double checking if they're willing to do these couples ruse, these operations, this training, because I don't know how many people know, but 3 of the women were only on trainings, and then the others did go on operations. Excuse me, there's 6 women and 1 male, I believe. So 3 went on trainings, 3 were on operations. And the amount of operations, I believe that the highest number of operations, and if I'm wrong, I'm happy to correct. But this is from a direct source. And then I'll make another comment about how I know, but about 5 or 6 operations. So 1 woman went on 1 operation. Another who did go on operations went on about 4, but it's around that number. Another went on, I believe, another one on 1, and then there are some women who you haven't seen their faces, or you haven't seen the face of that one woman. So those are about the numbers, and then, like I said, the others are trainings. 2 of the women did not make the training. They didn't make the cut, and that's okay. It's like you being on a team. You go to the training and you either make the cut or you don't. We've all done that, right? You try out for a team and you hope that you make it, but if you don't, maybe you can try again. What's interesting to me, what's fascinating to me, is that all of them wanted to either, if they went on a training, they were texting and asking when they would go on an operation. So if the training was so horrible and the training was abusive, why would you ask to go on an operation? And those that went on operations went on more operations. So if they went on one woman went to a training and an operation, and then that was all. But for others, and like I said, if I have this wrong or I'm off by 1 or 2 numbers, then I'm happy to correct it, because I don't want to be inaccurate. I want the audience, the listeners, to know the accuracy. But this is the gist of it. So if you've gone on an operation and you've had a bad experience, number 1, you're going of your own volition. You've signed, you've been talked to, you have reassured those that you're going with that you are ready for this, that you want to go, that you're comfortable going, and then you go. If you don't like what's happening, because they're all grown women, if you don't like what's happening, then you do what you would tell your daughter to do or your son to do. Call somebody, get out, leave. And I know in the litigation they say, that their heart was where they wanted to rescue children, they wanted to stay in the work. I understand that. But if something's happening and it's outside of your comfort zone, or it's against your morals, then you leave, you get out.
Let me ask you something. How many women total that you know of went on these operations?
Just total?
Yeah.
So more than twice as many than you've seen. So there are...
So about 15, roughly about 15, 20?
Not 20, but probably 15.
Okay. And we're talking 5 women here, right?
Yeah, 6, I think.
Okay. And you're saying only 3 of them you know of actually went on the operation out of these?
Let's see. I don't have those notes with me, but give me a second.
Did you say 2 or 3? I
Four.
can't remember. Four,
Sorry.
4 out of the 6 went on ops with him.
Right.
Did they go only one time or multiple, lots of times?
1 or 2 went once.
Okay. Got it.
1 went once. A second one. I know there was one that went once. I know another one went to a training and an operation. And so I'm kind of saying the same thing. Yeah, 1 or 2 times.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking, and then I'm probably jumping the gun because you got notes and stuff. By the way, she did take notes. That's why she's looking down at her tablet. But you even mentioned one that recently just decided to turn against him, and you guys, like, she was all the way supporting you guys. And then I know I'm jumping the gun on that, but I just want to throw that out there. We'll probably talk about that later. Anyway, go ahead.
There are women who have gone on operations, who I have in my notes, who are not in the lawsuit because they have I don't want to, give me a second. They are in support of the couple's ruse. Now, the couple's ruse has been burned. That's no longer going to happen. So that's over. But what I'm saying is they are international operators. Some of them have worked in law enforcement, nationally and internationally. They are professionals and have been on the ruse. So as many women that we see opposing this and asking for compensation for a bad experience or an experience that they found unfavorable or unsavory or inappropriate on an operation or in a training. And these women that we know of that are in the litigation are asking for compensation on this side, on this one hand. On the other hand, we have more women who are testifying, if you will, that the operation was above board. The operation, the couple's ruse was as expected. And granted, they have more experience and
exposure with Tim, even.
Yeah, and exposure with Tim. If you take the amount of time that these women in the litigation have spent in operations and with Tim, it's very short. If you combine all of their time, it's on operations, it's about 6 months. But the portrayal of this situation makes it sound like years. Now, some of these situations happened up to 2 years ago, but all of a sudden they're coming out all together at one time in the wake of this exorbitant, amazing success of the film and rescue. You know, the peak of education and awareness of human trafficking of minors, both politically and historically and in the media.
Right.
Meaning
let me ask
and
you,
the documentaries.
Do you feel that they came together on their own, or do you think that they were motivated by other forces?
I don't think they found each other just on their own.
I don't either.
I think they had help in some way. That's just, my conjecture. Also, I want to say, and we'll touch on this more. I keep saying we'll talk about this after, we'll talk about this later, but we really will get to those things because we'll go back and watch this video, and I'll make sure that we do talk about the things that I said we would talk about. There are holes in their testimonies. For example, the woman who broke her occipital bone or had her face injured in a training and said that Tim stood over her and said that we're not going to call the ambulance for whatever reason, referencing OUR, not wanting this to be on record, or, and again, if I have this wrong, then, we need to, I'm happy to apologize for my inaccuracy, but I do know it has been confirmed that Tim was not there in the training. She herself said there were 60 people there in the training. And
is this Celeste?
No, this is not Celeste.
Oh, okay.
This is Bree.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that. There's another story where one of the gals says that she talked to Blaine, Tim's son, at a strip club or at a club,
right.
and that did not happen.
Just real quick, Bree's not an alias, right?
No.
Okay,
no,
because it would be silly to use aliases anyway, because everyone knows who these people are anyway. But
yeah,
we could just say one of the women or whatever. But okay, so the strip club.
Yeah, where she talked to Blaine as a mom, as a mom would talk to a youngster. But Blaine was an adult, early 20s, and he was working as an operative. That was always the plan, for him to join his dad. And I know Blaine. Blaine's a wonderful, good young man. He makes excellent decisions on his own. He's a sound, upstanding young man. So there are conversations that are added into the testimonies. There are people that are referenced. There are things that are said that were never said. My words are added into their testimonies, which there are several of these which I never said, which is the end of my sentence. But the only women that I've ever spoken to in the lawsuits are Celeste and another woman who decided not to be named. And Celeste and I worked together for as long as she worked as Tim's executive assistant, and we traveled together. And we were in each other's presence quite often, especially on trips, because you don't sleep much and you're just around each other all the time. We were traveling to promote the movie. So this business of these violent assaults,
right, never happened.
It didn't happen.
Sometimes I wonder if they're getting that from their own experiences with maybe their husbands or another relationship. You know how people will make up stories and they'll sound believable. They'll use another experience they were in because it helps them sound realistic.
Yeah.
Interesting. What are some other inconsistencies? I know you and I have talked about them. I know you made some notes before we started this.
Right.
I don't want to jump the gun unless you have that already. Do you want to talk about the Celeste video and the cell phone messages?
Sure. So I do want to say, and I know that's not necessary to say, but I do want to say that I'm not here to negate anyone's feelings about what happened, or their perception of what happened on operations, or their expectations or lack of expectation, or lack of perceived outcome. But I do have my feelings, my take on it. I've been around people that have been around Tim for a long time, and 10 years in OUR is like 20 years. I mean, the momentum, the pace that everyone keeps. I would say most everyone in the last video, you said, Tim's a workaholic, I'm a workaholic. And I know you meant that as a compliment. I would say most everyone at OUR and in this work, all of those that I knew and associated with were workaholics.
Mm-hmm.
In a positive sense, right?
Well, you even described Tim as being if anyone would be manipulated, it would be him because he's such a nice guy,
He's
right?
nice. There's
It's
a
the
naivete.
opposite. It's the
Yes,
opposite.
yes. There's a naivete about Tim. He's very forgiving. He's very open. Um, he is, you know, he's a multitasker in his brain. So this idea is firing, and this idea and this project is going. I mean, there are books, documentaries, multiple documentaries, then the movie, speaking engagements, uh, other projects and entities, relationships, phone conversations. You know, it's never ending.
Right.
So and that's the work of Operation Underground
You
Railroad.
even told me one time you wanted to go home because you were tired and you were going through some things. A lot of people don't know this, and I'm not going to go into detail, but Janet and her husband experienced a tragedy in their family a couple years. And not to go into detail or exploit that because I'm not trying to do that, but I want people to know that this isn't the only thing that Janet's going through, and it's already horrible. But other things,
Yeah.
A death in the family, and
Yeah.
and they've had to overcome that. At the same time, a lot of this other crap was showing its ugly head.
So my first trip with Tim and Matt Cooper and several others. By the way, there's always a group of people on these trips. So though these trips are portrayed, bring me back to the going home in a second, but I just want people to know, though these trips are portrayed in the litigation as these singular, alone, clandestine kind of meetings where it's just Tim and a female, or there, maybe one or two others, if that. It's not that way. These are groups. There are several people, and sometimes there are many people on these trips and on these, for sure, certainly on operations. There are always a lot of people around. So I just don't want the public's perception to be that Tim is just like sneaking off with different women,
No. I'd say, so there was a time where you said, I want to go home. I'm tired. Because
Well,
we were talking about his naivety.
yeah,
Is that the right naivety? And his naivete and his niceness. And you said, I'm tired, Tim. I want to go home. And he wasn't like, no, you're staying. Not like, he's not a bossy boss.
No.
He's not a dictator.
No, he's not a dictator. So it was my first trip, and I went for free because I know that there's a sensitivity about getting paid exorbitant amounts of money, but I went without pay on purpose. And, I said, of course, I'm not going to charge. So I went, and I could tell it was dangerous. It was going to be dangerous. I knew that before. It was actually dangerous in a different way than we had anticipated, which can happen on an operation, relating that to the logistics and the outcomes for these women. But not to negate anything they're saying, just saying from my own experience. So I went on this trip, and we were in a dangerous area. We were about to go to a more dangerous, unknown situation. And I half jokingly said to Tim, can I go home? And he said, you want to go home? And this is typical of his demeanor. You want to go home? I said, can I? And he said, because, we weren't sleeping, we're eating granola bars all the time, protein bars, protein drinks. And I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah, you can go home. And he's like looking around for who he can get to get me arranged so that I can go home. And I said, just kidding. Of course the conversation happened fast. I said, just kidding. No, I'll stay. And he goes, well, if you need to go home, if you want to go home, why do you want to go home? And that's how he is. He'll ask and ask and ask and ask, and just make sure that you're okay.
Amen.
So no one's forced to stay.
Well, and the reason I brought that up is to mention that, because you've mentioned that several times, is that he's a team player, and he is. I almost felt like I knew him before I even met him. And you even called when you emailed me. You're like, you're getting all of this right, Troy. And I'm like, I know, I can tell, because I had a boss like him that just, didn't let his standing in life and his position go to his head. And he doesn't seem like that kind of person. Doesn't let things go to his head. He's not manipulative. He's not controlling. He's not a dictator. And he genuinely loves people. And I even said to somebody, or it was you, why would somebody that's doing this for children want to hurt women when that's not even, when it's not in his, somebody that's giving up, talking to Catherine, true story. He says, go save children, give up your position. I don't care. Just go do what Heavenly Father wants you to do. Why would somebody do that and then do something evil to other people? It contradicts.
Yes.
Right?
It does. Like I said, I traveled with Celeste. I still consider her my friend. She was my friend. She is my friend. She's my friend. I don't know if I'm still her friend. I don't know why I'm named in the lawsuits with all of these women. I don't know. Maybe it makes it more sensational. Maybe it makes it more impactful for them, for their story. But it certainly isn't fair to me, and it isn't fair to those I'm associated with. It's not fair to my family. But it is what it is. So I have no animosity towards Celeste. I just want to say I have no animosity toward the others that are in the lawsuits that have named me. I just want to clear things up. So
let's watch this video of Celeste and then talk about the texts and how they contradict each other.
Okay.
All right, let's do that right now.
And miracles happen on every single op. And every op that I haven't been on, because they've done so many, I think about the miracles I've heard of and I've seen. And it's like Jesus is helping every single op, that I've never been scared. I've never been afraid. And I don't know what it is, but when I've gone in, I'm nervous going up until the op. Yeah. But he just takes care. He just takes care. And so I don't even know how to answer that
I can
question.
tell you, she's been in some crazy places. Like, you've walked into some of the darkest, like, hotels in the worst parts of Mexico.
Yeah.
Like, I've watched you go in, and you are completely calm. And the girls love them. And this is why the females can always connect with the female recruiters and the children. So much, but the kids want to talk to me or another dude. They see her and they're like, hi. Yeah. And the women love to talk to her because they're like, oh, you're also abandoning all things woman. Right. Yeah. All things mother. Yep. I'll talk to you. And so she gets all this intel that I could never get. I got a question for you. Great. Have you ever heard a case, because you have an ability like few others, you actually compartmentalize well and come back to normalcy pretty well, better than I do.
Well, thank you.
Do you know of cases, have you seen cases working with others where like the female operators go in and they can't get out of role?
Yes,
What's an example, without naming names or anything?
Oh, well, they become emotionally attached. And so, like on the op, or come during, prep of the op. And so when you're on operations, you have to get into the role of connecting with people. You're already connecting with people on a whole nother level because you're experiencing things you don't experience on a daily life. So it is a crazy world. So, and then you throw into what role you're being in, whether you're a couple or whatever it is, whatever operation you're doing, whatever you need to be doing to get the kids out. So there's a whole mindset of situations that you got to compartmentalize in. So when you go back to life, it can really screw up your mind. And so if you're not ready, if you're not trained or ready for it, it can really screw it up. And then you have a lot of problems. You get, when you get home.
What problem?
Ruining a whole operation and organization and teams in itself. I guess, I don't know.
So like people come back.
People come back and
they're like, I thought we're really in love. I thought it was real. That kind of thing.
Yeah, well, they just they're too attached. They get too emotionally attached. Then you go on the operation, it's intensified so much more, and then by the time you get home, you have to go back to real life, because if the op is done, or you go back to real life anyway and the op is on pause until you go back out again.
Right.
And so you have that compartmentalizing that's here, but it has to get done because these kids need to be saved.
Say this, she's worked, I'm just picturing, all the cases I know, she's been on multiple continents. She actually helped to infiltrate a case. I won't get too many details, but say a little bit about this. But she helped to infiltrate an operation or a trafficking organization that's trafficking North Korean children through Europe, Mexico, and into Los Angeles.
I couldn't believe how one survivor was able to open up to how much we were able to find just from her. Yeah. And it's such a great case that I've never heard or seen him break down. But he had to walk out of the room 3 different times because he had to walk out of the room because I kept looking over at him and I'm like, okay, he needs to start laughing because his tears coming down, those are tears of, he lost it 3 times. Because it was so heartbreaking.
With my wig.
With his wig.
And I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom again.
Yeah, and I'm
like in the bathroom just like,
and it just
I can't believe the story.
Because this girl, we think she was, how old do you think she was?
She was like 13 or 14.
13 or 14, and she said, she spoke she was from North Korea, but she was so confused on so many things because she was trafficked at such a young age, but she didn't remember so many things before. And so, but she was so innocent inside. Well, they're so innocent anyways, but they get so many things stripped from them. Right. She's trafficked from like 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. And I just sit there and I think, oh my gosh, like, I couldn't even imagine. And so, but every time we go to where we need to go to see her, we call her agency and we buy her for the day. And when she knows who we are, and we as she sees us, she runs to us because she knows when it's us. Right. She has those 24 hours to just sleep and relax and to eat. And we didn't want to leave. And the first time we were there, I was there anyway, I met her and I looked at Tim and I wanted to just go with her, and I was this close, and I
had to pull her back. I'll just go with her and just be with her.
So I have this ability, I think, to be able to connect with people. Yeah. So I'm like, let me just go. Let me just go because whoever she's living with, I'll be able to find out something. But you actually got super mad when I implied. He's like, we push it to be able to make things happen, but that's pushing it way too far. I'm like, I'll be able to sneak out if I need to, but let me just go to her apartment. But we found out a lot on that trip.
No, this is going to be a huge, huge case.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of it right now, but it's big. But I'll tell you, if I didn't have a female partner with me, I couldn't do any of this. First of all, she wouldn't talk to me like she can talk to her.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I just couldn't be there. If I was alone with her, just to manipulate the situation so I don't do what she thinks.
It's so true.
But she's like, oh no, that made sense to her, right?
Right.
I mean, it's absolutely impossible to do anything without a female operator.
Because even going into the place, I knew that everything that you just said, it's so true. I brought nothing to that op, like as far as I didn't have a specific role in mind going, except everything he just said. But we were there for about 48 hours total, and everything that I needed to do to be there, that if you were there on the bystander just kind of watching around going, why is this random just sitting around,
Right.
But I was there protection of it's so true. I wish if I could get into details, you'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Meanwhile, me and Tim around the corner banging on the walls, and we're trying not to laugh with each other. We couldn't just show up and do, nothing, and so or act like,
because then she'd know we're cops.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, it's a crazy story. So I can't wait for it all to just unravel.
This video was made. This was part of a podcast that's no longer available. It's someone else's podcast, and this video is talking about the couple's ruse and the efficacy of the couple's ruse, and how when using that tactic, which is in an arsenal of many tactics, when using that tactic, it's effective, and that it really does rescue and find minors and other women. Because when you cast the net for minors, you are sometimes going to find women who were minors, as Celeste is referring to.
Oh, it's showing the effectiveness of the couple's ruse and why we did it in the first place.
Yes. And
it's
that,
not because Tim wants to get close and cuddly with women.
right.
Right.
So,
Gotcha.
So the
Okay, I
couple's
get
ruse,
it.
yep. You go undercover, you see undercover, and disguised, like he's referencing, you get into role, you have a burner phone, which has conversations that are not real. These are in role acting. The whole thing is an act. And you go into these locations, whatever they are. There's many locations where children would be, where you may not expect them to be, where minors would be sold or trafficked as older children, or, I mean, older youth. Maybe they pass off a 16-year-old as an 18-year-old, or a 14-year-old as a 16, 17-year-old, depending on the country. Younger is not always illegal at, below 18 years old. So they go into these situations and it's effective. Like they found this North Korean girl. Now, I want to tell you, I'm just not listening to this podcast. I know of this op because I was part of this operation all the way through.
Okay. Now, can you explain to me, because this is related. So the point of this video is to show, the main point of why this was given to me was to show that this person, Celeste, who is now suing you guys,
Right. Yes.
was all about it and had been on many operations.
Yes, she's been on
and understood that you have to act or you
Correct.
have to be so believable. Can you explain to me explain to the audience what people go through, what you guys go through, what these men are doing? They're doing Viagra, they're doing all the drugs. You guys have to have stuff on your burner phones that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. Can you explain a little bit of all that?
Sure.
Okay.
And let me clarify, I've not done a couples ruse operation. I've done labor trafficking operations, other ruses. So like I said, let's let everyone know this is one tactic in an arsenal of tactics, which really should never be revealed.
Okay. So you have other ruses. Ruse isn't just, ruses. It's not just isolated for couples. It's a ruse means we're going out to fool the bad guys.
Correct.
Okay.
And it has nothing, other ruses have nothing to do with posing as a couple or being boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife, that kind of thing. In that way. But there are children that are in the depths, the darkest depths of trafficking. And that particular tactic is used to rescue those particular children. Now that tactic is burned and it's not used and it's been exposed, those particular children that are hidden in that particular way, where you can only find them if you go in as a couple, may likely never be rescued.
In other words, this ups the opportunities of rescue maybe by 35% even sometimes. There are children in situations where if you didn't go in with a significant other,
right,
or a pretend girlfriend,
right,
you wouldn't be able to get these kids out.
Right.
Be advised, brothers and sisters, this is a trigger warning. I'm giving you ample warning that the next few minutes is going to be a graphic detail of what goes on in the dark world of human trafficking.
So the traffickers, the pedophiles, the perpetrators are, drugs are involved. These men are amped up on drugs. In order to participate in these kinds of sex acts, there's usually drugs involved. Children are often given drugs so that they can perform and not resist, so that they are sedated to a point, and so that they can still be participatory. I'm sorry to be, somewhat graphic, but this is beyond what most good people with their, good minds and hearts can imagine and sometimes comprehend. This is hard. This is harsh. And traffickers will present minors right in front of the operators, meaning the couple in the couple's ruse. They'll present minors or escorts, or, that might be the first phase. And then they get intel from the escorts or from the girls that are presented to them. They get intel from them that there are children, and then another meeting, the children are presented. And when the children are presented, they don't just say, here's some children that we're going to sell you, and you're going to take them somewhere and have
bye-bye, we won't see you and the kid anymore.
Correct.
It's it's like a undercover narcotics officer, where he's like the bad guy's like, the dealer's like, let's do a line together, and they're cutting up the cocaine on the mirror. You're gonna do that here. You do it. I want to see you do it. Right?
Sorry,
I interrupted you.
You're good.
I wanted to show the similarities of why this is so important to have a female be the distractor, right?
Right. But they are presenting this product, they are presenting this commodity that they're selling, and they're saying, go to it. Have at it right there. They want to know that they're real. They want to know that they are really desirous of the thing that they came for. And people in that world would partake in that situation. They would have no qualms about it. So what Tim and other operators, there are other male and female couples, some married couples that have been used, some in law enforcement, some in other fields that are compatible with going on operations where they've had some training, have to block for each other. So the male might say to the female, or the female to the male in the couple's ruse, no, that's for later. We're gonna save that for later. Or they pretend to need to
have
relations together to stay off, or to stave off the participation with the child. But now they've seen the children, and now they have the intel. And they have to make themselves believable to the traffickers.
I think a lot of people have a hard time. I think that's one of the hardest things for people in the world that doesn't see all that going on to fathom, right? Mm-hmm. Especially Latter-day Saints, which I think it's very tactical for the opposition to have all of these proceedings in Daviess County and Utah, because they're trying to turn this into, look, Latter-day Saint community, look what they're doing. This is horrible.
Yeah.
Tim doesn't need to do this. He went on a mission. He shouldn't be even pretending that he's, all that, whatever, which they don't understand what it's like to do unconventional cop things. These are lots of undercover cops come away. It's like CIA operatives. It's almost the same thing, right? So you got burner phones even with pornography on them, because they'll grab your phone, right?
Or pornographic language.
I don't think they have
images. They have
or a fake text to somebody or whatever, saying whatever.
Right.
Because they grab, hey, let me see your phone, and they'll just kind of go through it and be like, who are you anyway? Are you a cop?
Yes. There are exactly, if you watch the documentary, I don't know if it's out yet, called The Hidden War, which will be coming out. There are several operations that are highlighted. And let me say also that most of the operations are filmed, because that's the most incriminating evidence, is the film. So there are always people around, filming, on most. I'm not saying on all.
Right.
The majority. So the burner phone, speaking to that, and then I do want to address a question that people might have. Why bring non-law enforcement operators, as contractors on and off? So I do want to address that. But the burner phone, so they dirty up the phones. It's called dirtying the phone. They put on conversations between operators. Tim is not the only one to dirty up the phone. There are others that act as Tim or Tim's character and as the female's character that text back and forth and dirty up the phone.
Yeah, see,
Or
that's just it. Sorry, I have to say this. That's just it. People think that Tim's the only one that does these operations. They're after Tim because Tim is the spokesperson. He's the one bringing awareness. He's the superhero for everyone. They're going
right,
after him not because he did anything different than anyone else that's been on couples ruses and operations. They're going after him because he is the poster boy
yes,
of all of this. And it's
yes.
very conniving, and it's strategic. That they're going after you. They're going after Catherine. They're going after very innocent people, guys.
So the burner phones are dirtied up. They have, you would ground your child for life for the things that are on there. They're the worst of the worst conversations, but they have to be believable, so that, just like you said, which has happened before on operations, a trafficker, pedophile, a client, someone will, they're brazen, right? They don't have any qualms about looking at your phone, checking you out. It's the only way to vet you. It's the only way to see if you're real or not. One of the only ways. So they take the phone, they look through the phone. Well, there it is. This couple that's presented there in their hotel room or the location that they're meeting. This couple is actually a couple. They're crazy for each other. They're hypersexualized, and the texts and the expressions on the phones reflect that, absolutely, and has to. And then after the operation, the burner phone, very appropriately and necessarily, is swiped, and it should be. It's not needed anymore. It's fake. It's a script. It's the role. So why hold on to it? You don't need it. But
Right.
some operators held on to the burner phones, or didn't swipe the phone or scrub the phone. They didn't turn it in. They held on to it. Some, as Celeste is saying herself on the video, stay in the role emotionally or psychologically. They continue to live the role outside of the operation. Tim is in role, then Tim is out of role. They may be in role and then out of role, but maybe their heart or emotions are still in role. And so they're either enamored or infatuated or,
Right.
still motivated, and they want to go on another op. They want to have that connection again. They want to have that excitement, that James Bond kind of experience.
Someone said it made the connection, or the similarity of that with when you go to camp for a week, and then you come home and you're depressed because you miss
Mhm.
the people you met at camp, you miss your counselor, you miss all the things that you did at camp, and because you became a little family for a week.
Yes.
Some people can't detach from that because there's something emotionally not right maybe with them. I'm not making fun of that. What I'm
Right.
saying is that's happening with some of these people.
That is happening, and that has happened. And I've seen it for 10 years. This is, a different level, but, Even men have, what people call a man crush, or they want to be like Tim or others close to Tim. They want to be like them. They want to be in that inner circle. They don't want to be participating and then not be participating. It's exciting, I suppose, to be in the inner circle. I mean, I would say that I use this term, we all grew up together in OUR, because in the beginning, nobody was famous. Nothing was phenomenal or big. It was just all about the work and the mission, and it has continued to be for 10 years. But those who come in and out periodically do become enamored and starstruck. And they do want to be part of that, like I said, that inner circle, or that exciting work, and can't detach. And then,
well, didn't someone keep one of the burner phones?
yes, okay, someone did keep one of the burner phones for a long, long time.
One of the people is it someone that made accusations?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's just as important. I guess that's what I really mean, is someone that has made the accusations couldn't detach.
Correct.
Like, probably had it the hardest, and didn't want to give up the burner phone, kept it as a souvenir, and even was ready to go on another op, right?
Yes. When this person went on a training on her own dime. So after the operation, everything was fine, as is with these women that are in the litigation. Everything was fine after their training, after their operation or operations. They expressed that, some of them expressed that it was professional. Some of them are on video for their debrief as a testimony, not forced. These are their own words. Again, I can't overemphasize that everyone who went of their own volition. They went with instruction and correct expectations. Things change on an operation, things are fluid. But when you come home from a situation like that, or you're in a situation, then we should leave. No one manipulated them or forced them to stay. They were not abused, they were not gagged, they were not tied up, they were not refused to go. They had a phone, they could have called someone, they could have gotten picked up. I mean, they weren't far from home. The training is close to home. And then they went home. But then they all wanted to go back out again. If they didn't make it through the training, they did want to go on an op. And those who made it through the training and went on an op wanted to go again.
Right.
Either to another training or not. So this individual that you're talking about went on an operation, came back. The operation actually had to be burned because of some things that happened, that the trafficker didn't want to be around this female. Maybe he felt that it was fishy. There's some, these people are honed in to who's real and who's not real. So the amount of believability that you have to sell as an operator is huge.
And it's not for an Oscar or an Emmy, it's for your life.
Right.
And the life of the person that you're rescuing. Because you could
Yes.
screw that up. You guys might hightail it out of there, right? But you've got 20 other people, like you said, with you in your camp, that are around you in other hotel rooms, or maybe staying in other hotels, or
even remote. Even they're remote. They're on the line. They're
right,
running the op.
But then there's that kid, and maybe you've put them in danger, the child, or whatever, right? So yeah, people don't realize that this wasn't just, I've got a girl with me and we're gonna go in and pretend and drink a soda pop at the counter, and here's the money. Okay, thank you for the child. Bye. No, it's not like that. You have to live, eat, drink, sleep, be a pervert.
Yes, because that child is their property, is the trafficker's commodity, and they're not going to just let them go. They want to sell them again and again. they want to sell them 7 times during the day. Unless, you buy them for the whole day. But even then, it's not common that individual, in Celeste's example, the individual got to leave, but not for a child. That's not common that child gets to leave the trafficker's radar. What Celeste is saying is that on one operation that she's referring to, they found North Korean females that were being trafficked since they were young minors, young teens. And what happens sometimes to these minors is they grow up in it, or they're trafficked until they become an 18-year-old
Right.
or older. So then they're essentially a prostitute. They are trafficked still, but they're not a trafficked minor.
Right.
And she's saying that this was successful. This was highly successful. And as I said before, I was a participant in this op, meaning I was consulting on the op. I was privy to the op as it was happening, where they found this one North Korean female and other North Korean females who had their passports taken and who were younger than they were purported to be, or that they were presented as. And they opened up to Celeste. And she's right. She's very good at that. So she's testifying to, she's speaking to, she's validating the success, the efficacy of the couple's ruse. And now in her testimony, in her exhibit that's attached to the lawsuit, she's saying that the couple's ruse is not successful. And as these other women are saying, that it is a vehicle for Tim's own gratification, which is not the case.
Right. So, you guys have some people defending you, right?
Yes, I'm not tethered to an attorney, and thus I'm speaking freely.
Okay. You were mentioning to me at one time about the allegations of some grooming conspiracy.
Right. Which is
of him having you and others help groom these women. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, or that we collaborated as an organization, as a team, as individuals, that there was collaboration. In the lawsuit, it says a meeting of the minds, that we're collaborating together to allow Tim to have physical gratification with women on the couple's ruse.
Yeah,
now,
that's what OUR existed for. That's what all of these things were, just so Tim could, what is he, some kind of king cult leader or something?
I mean, how ridiculous, how utterly absurd is that? We are professionals. First and foremost, we're professionals in this capacity.
Right.
Executives, spouses, parents, and we're number one. I mean, besides those things I just said, number one, we don't have time we would never have time for that. And the intent that's inferred there, that's intimated there, it's so bizarre, so ridiculous.
Yeah. You know what else is bizarre? Just real quick. I want to address this because there's a lot of anti-Mormons. I'm going to call them that. People that are friendly to these people call them critics. I still call them anti-Mormons because that's what they are. They're anti-Latter-day Saints. And there's a couple out there. What are their names? There's a lot of them that are tying you guys in with, even with the day bill and with,
yeah, I've heard that.
Other, cultish, like, just weird, things that have happened in Utah. And if most people that live in Utah are Latter-day Saints, so they're going to happen to be members of, and they're, no matter what their activity was in the church, whether they were semi-active, very active, but anti Latter-day Saints like to bunch everyone together and say they bring up Visions of Glory, the book, and they use that as some like that was Tim's Bible or Tim Anders at the like the book before, not some uh, agenda to read every day or I mean, just like a lot of members of the church have talked about that book and liked it and maybe have it on their books. You know what I'm saying though?
I
A
know
lot of
exactly what you're saying.
weird connection.
They're trying to stretch the narrative, which is already a stretch. The narratives in the in the litigation is already stretched. It's like taffy. Taffy is pretty dense when it's together, and then it's all stretched out and has a lot of holes in it, and it's stringy. And
Right.
it looks like,
Right.
for me, I read the litigation, and I see things that, because of how long I've been in OUR and the people that I know, and I know these people, and even the women that I don't know, I know of and knew of while they were on trainings and operations. I've known their names since they were on the scene. So I see the holes, and it's just a big stretch. And they're trying to connect. They're trying to make things like the day bells or other oddities stick. They're trying to make it stick to this. And
Right.
the two have no association. I do want to say that Tom Harrison is a good friend and a dear person, and we love him and support him. And he wrote a beautiful book, Visions of Glory.
And whether we agree with that book or not, or read it, haven't read, Tim's and Janet's religious beliefs, or there are many different kinds of Latter-day Saints in the church. What I mean is, we don't all believe perfectly theologically together. That doesn't mean we don't answer the temple recommend questions correctly altogether, because most of us do. You go to the temple, but some of us have like interests in near-death experiences more than others. That's not something that they would read, but
Yeah.
Visions of Glory isn't like a horrible book.
No.
But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say to what you're saying, some have had a near-death experience. My son had a near-death experience. You touched on my son before. You didn't say my son, but our death in the family that you referred to is my son, my beautiful, beautiful boy, Michael, who passed away at 18. And he had a near-death experience the night before his 18th birthday, and then he passed. That was in February, and then he passed in April. So, people have near-death experiences, and so then they're more attracted to those, just like you're saying, or they are interested in family history. It's like anything that someone has a particular interest in or attraction to.
Right.
It's wrong.
Right. Exactly. And you've got people like John Dehlin making these weird connections. You have Radio Free Mormon. Some of you don't know who these people are. That's the name of the podcast. They talk about you guys endlessly. They connect you with the Frankie, Ruby Frank.
Oh. Wait a minute. I know who you mean. Down in southern Utah. The mom?
Yeah, the Frankie case. I don't know if it's Frankie or Frank.
Yeah.
And the Hildebrandt. The name of this couple that does the hidden true crime, Lauren Matthias and Dr. John Matthias, make all these substantiated connections that are ridiculous. Like, you don't even know these people, and they're just, I don't know. That's like, let's just group anybody together because they're Latter-day Saints. Or more importantly, for those of you who have followed a lot of this and know who these people are, these other podcasters. What they do is they connect this Visions of Glory book. And because Jody Hildebrandt and Chad Daybell read the book, know of it, like it, and even spoke at some of the same conferences that Tim had. Tim even mentioned his good friendship with one or a couple of them before they went and killed people and did some horrible things in the name of weirdness. Now, I know personally some people that have read Tom Harrison's book. I haven't read it. I have no desire to read it. And I don't particularly think that it has anything to do with my salvation. And I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I guarantee you that most people don't know of that book who are active members of the church and don't go to a lot of these conferences. Now, I do believe wholeheartedly in the freedom to believe in what you want as long as you don't hurt other people. Now, I honestly know, and Janet knows, that they don't associate with people that hurt children and other people like some of these people did. They don't believe in starving your children like Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Frank did. And I don't even know much about the stories, but I'm telling you, you can't connect the causation and correlation principle because somebody knew somebody at a conference and maybe were friends with them before they committed heinous crimes and went crazy. So that's how the Matthiases, that's how John DeLynn, and that's how these other podcasters such as this Jordan and McKay couple who looked so happy when they had the light of Christ and the Holy Ghost. I look at a lot of these people. Now, I don't agree. I can be friends with people and not agree with their religious beliefs, or some of them. Even some members of the church have what I call religious hobbies. I don't believe in them, but they're good people. All right. I don't go there. I have different ideas about what the gospel of Jesus Christ means. And most of what I believe is mainstream. And I mean mainstream in the sense of what I think is what the brethren want me to do. On a couple of my podcasts, I mentioned a reporter named Adam Herbett. He is with Adam Herbett is with Fox 13 News. And he has a vendetta, obviously a vendetta against him and yourself and everyone that's involved in the lawsuit. You want to explain what you have to say about that, about him?
Sure. So his latest Fox 13 piece, he shared a timeline, and I can address a few of those points. I'm not going to address all the points on the timeline, but I'll address the ones pertaining to this situation, because he's talking about Sean Reyes, who, by the way, I just want to say is a lovely person, and he was a great supporter of OUR and went on some operations, and just a good man. So I'll address a couple of points, like I said. One point that Adam Herbett made was from October 2020 to 23, District Attorney Troy Rawlings, District Attorney for Davis County, Troy Rawlings, opened an investigation. So these are my words. After announcing there was an investigation that was opened. So Troy announced that there was an investigation opened. There was not. He hadn't filed the investigation yet.
Okay, who's Troy Rawlins?
District Attorney for Davis County.
Okay, that's right. Sorry. So Troy Rawlins, apparently he lies a lot. And go ahead, because you have some email stuff you want to. Good.
Yes. So Troy jumped the gun apparently, and announced that there was an investigation into OUR because he also has a bit of a vendetta, or did, against him. I don't know what his current feelings are. I hope they're favorable. So after announcing that there was an investigation, which there wasn't, then he opened an investigation. The scope of that investigation was undefined and broad. It was huge. I was subpoenaed, others were subpoenaed. The result of that 2.5-year investigation was that there was no fault on the part of OUR or Tim or any one of the dozens of people and entities named and included in that investigation. However, some of the material shared by District Attorney Rawlings was not obtained with the necessary permissions required. Assumptions were made and stated as facts and carried by media outlets and reposted with those same inaccuracies over and over without fact checking. And I'll tell you what one of those was. So one of those inaccuracies was, okay, I'm gonna jump to that. One of the inaccuracies was that he had 10,000 pages of readings. I'm going to read what I wrote in my notes. A statement was also included in public documents that Troy had in his possession 10,000 pages of readings. They don't exist. So I want your audience to know. I want everyone to know they don't exist. And therefore, DA Rawlings never had them. They've never existed. He's never had anything in his possession. He's never had pages in his possession. What he did was he obtained some emails or access to some emails that he didn't have permissions to.
So he basically hacked your email account.
There was a link, a portal, a Google link, a Google portal, and he had petitioned the judge, I believe, for permission, and that wasn't granted yet. And he must have looked at the portal. And again, if I'm wrong on this, then I'm wrong. But this has been discussed quite a lot, and I've checked this and rechecked this. But he must have gotten into a portal or the link and read a few emails, which he did not have permission to read or have access to. And he mistakenly assigned an identity to Nephi, a Nephi named.
So that's where that comes from.
Correct.
And then that's spread all over like wildfire.
Yes. So there's no talking to the Book of Mormon deceased prophet Nephi, who's an author in the Book of Mormon. That's completely false. And also what Adam Herbert said on this timeline was tens of thousands of dollars were spent on a psychic speaking to the deceased prophet Nephi. I just want to say that's false. Emails were wrongfully obtained and the identity of Nephi was attributed to the Book of Mormon prophet and author Nephi. That was an erroneous assumption made by the district attorney and stated as fact by the district attorney in documents that are now released, unsealed and released to the public. And then, of course, the 10,000 pages, which he never had in his possession.
Okay.
Nothing of mine was ever in his possession. So that's another. So
point. Are they going to go after him for all of that? What he's done?
I don't know.
That's kind of criminal, isn't it?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Right.
So another point he made was, which is I'm hitting these a little out of order of his timeline, but is that on September 15th, 2023, outlets reported that the LDS Church made a statement about Tim Ballard, not true. And we touched on that before. We spoke about that before. And I was saying anyone can call, and that I've called 5 times and I called today, and that is not a statement from the church.
Right.
They're saying it's not a statement, and it's not on their newsroom, which they've said if there's a statement about anything from the church, then it'll be on their newsroom. So those are a few points that
Well, it was a
Adam,
request for comment, which is not a statement, but we don't even have any proof that there was even a request for comment.
yeah, and they're calling it, their words, the vernacular they're using is statement. So they're saying there's not a church statement.
Right.
Or maybe
Gotcha.
they're mirroring, what people are saying.
In other words, they don't even know what, yeah. Go ahead.
Yep. So that's that with Adam's newest piece.
And so he was kind of rummaging around your neighborhood, this reporter. He was in your
Yes.
neighborhood going through garbage.
Well, either someone or a raccoon or something had been in the garbage, but we've never had raccoons in the garbage, in the trash. So,
That's against the law. I don't know about
Yeah.
your state, but that's against the law.
So
That's
I don't
private
know
property.
who that was.
That's the guy that I call Wormy Worm videos, because you could tell that he's got a vendetta. Like we said before, the women we don't believe were gathered, were put together, or they weren't. They didn't do this unilaterally.
They didn't find each other.
They didn't call each other and go, "Hey, let's and let's get an attorney." No, they were found. They were brought together. This was a calculated effort to usurp Tim Ballard, regardless of what you think he might have did or didn't do. And 3 days before he was going to announce his run for the Senate, it was leaked, and all hell broke. So now, do you want to talk about the instability of a couple of these women?
You mean emotional?
Well, it's
instability?
important. I think it's important. Yeah, like maybe your conversation that you had with one of them about.
It's not. There's this group of women that are public, and I do want to emphasize again, for those who may not have heard it before, there are more women who have gone on ops who are
Supportive.
in support of the operation of this tactic, this one of many tactics in the arsenal of tactics. There are more women that are in support than there are in this group that have come out and demanded money,
Right.
and compensation. Let me say this. You asked me to talk about their emotional state. I can talk about one who I've had conversations with, or two that I've had conversations with. But can we talk about their demand first?
Yeah.
Can we talk about the money?
Yeah. Well, that's important. We need to know why they're doing it.
So each of these women are asking for $5 million. So one couple is married, right? But they were filing for divorce before this all happened, before this came out, before Celeste and Mike joined the lawsuit, they were filing for divorce. So I know that to be true because I was on the phone with Celeste when she had gone to the attorney. And so the idea that Tim has broken up two marriages, one being of a female that's not even on the lawsuit, and the other being Celeste and Mike, is simply not true. We all know in our married lives that it takes much, much more for a marriage to dissolve or be on the verge of dissolution than one human being. We cannot blame Tim Ballard or anyone else for that sake for the dissolution of a relationship that's between two individuals who live together and have, in this case, have had children together.
Right.
Tim is not the straw that broke the camel's back.
No.
They break the back
And
themselves.
I'll even say this again because I've said it on my other videos, and I'm not going to just not say it now. You don't believe done anything wrong. I don't either, but like I said, I don't know for sure. But my beef with Tim is not, well, I don't have a beef with Tim. My beef wouldn't be, did you commit adultery or did you have sexual relations with somebody and it was consensual? And because that's between him, said it before, and his wife and his bishop and whoever else was in, and that's between her and her husband, bishop or whatever. Speaking to the Latter-day Saints and speaking to the world, we are Latter-day Saints. But that's not illegal. That's not sexual assault. That is consensual, and that is a mistake. Now, whether it happened or not, I'm not saying I know. I don't know. You don't know. We know what we believe. We know that we believe Tim, and we believe in due process. But let's stick to the lawsuit. I know I'm a Latter-day Saint. I know he is, but it's none of my business how he repents or if he repents, because not just a Latter-day Saint. He's not even just a international hero right now. Not asking to be, but because he's brought awareness, because he's done the things that's what matters. How many, and I've said this before, how many sheriffs and chiefs of police and FBI agents have cheated on their wives and are still American heroes or doing the work, going out and being police officers, saving lives?
Understood. Yes, it makes sense. I want to say that we don't know what happens behind closed doors, and whatever, happened on an operation, if the female took it as an advance, or as I know to be true, some of the females, which the public should be aware of, advanced on Tim. And he loves Catherine. And Catherine is a beautiful woman in every way. And he's devoted and dedicated to his family. And I know that he would not throw that away for a momentary fix somewhere, especially in an environment where there are other people on the operation. Others have keys to the rooms. There are people in and out. There's very little sleep. You're tired. You're in mission mode. You're planning logistically. Like I've said before, using the word fluid, there's a fluidity to the op, meaning things can change on a dime. The traffickers don't, have their planner where you're just penciled in for the hour. They can decide they're going to meet you later, or they could get spooked or whatever. So you have to readjust. You're working on their timetable, their hours, late at night, maybe too early in the morning. So I know the goodness of Tim, and I know the goodness of Catherine, and I know the solidity of their bond, and he would not sacrifice his covenants for another woman.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, and I would think that the only emotions and adrenaline that's flowing when you're out there is, I think probably the highest levels of adrenaline is from fear and being alert and being on the high intense atmosphere, and that adrenaline is flowing more than some sexual chemistry. Well, chemistry has to be there to fake these people out. And we're not talking about X on the kit, X on the cheek. We're talking about, this is my lover. This is my old lady. This is my girl. And we're pretending. for actors.
Right. And some, like Celeste said herself, have a difficult time separating. And interestingly, so did Celeste. So let's just say it like it is. That's the purpose of us talking. Celeste fell in love with Tim. And
can you talk about one of those conversations you had where
well, yes, in several conversations, or there were several comments, several times, let me be clear, several times that Celeste said to me, I'm in love with Tim. I'm in love with Tim. Tim is my best friend. And she said that in front of others. And I said to Tim, you got to be careful with that because that doesn't look good. Catherine is your best friend. And, Tim in his naivete, truly bless his heart. And he's thinking of other things. He's like, yeah. And, brushes it off. Truly brushes it off, thinking it'll go away. Or, as we're on trips, he always makes sure he calls Catherine. She's the last person that he talks to at night. He's always connecting with her. And she's a wise and good person. She's a great counselor to Tim. So none of these women were her replacement. But I do believe, and again, I'm not speaking for these women. This is my belief. This is my feeling, my observation, that and my observation as he was in training with certain females and on ops with certain females. It's my feeling and observation that these women did attach to Tim and did not unattach. And so is this a case of, I'll just pose the question, is this a case of unrequited infatuation, unrequited love, or what they interpreted as love? And this is Tim's punishment because he stepped away, and as they were texting him to continue conversation with him, he didn't respond because to him the op is over and the role is closed. But to them, the feelings might be open and their heart is open and their hope is there. There's a hope there for them that they might have a continued relationship, that they might go on another op, that they might repeat the excitement that they felt before. So they have these feelings, and let's just say they have these feelings and they go home with them. They have a boyfriend or they have a spouse, or maybe they're single, but they have to tell their significant other, perhaps, or not tell their significant other how they feel. And as things got found out, especially for some of them, for one who's not named or who's not part of the lawsuits, but had this exact problem and did have detailed and intense conversation with me. And for Celeste, for example, do they have to then hide this from their spouse? Do they have to point the finger at Tim and blame others and blame everyone and receive compensation and make up a story that they were sexually abused, and then it changes to be violently abused?
Did anyone else out? Okay, so you said how many people go with them on an operation usually?
Oh, there's at least 5 people
that will go.
There's a logistics person, an assistant.
Okay. Are any of these people saying that they sensed some bad chemistry between them, or these women that would go, or were they just?
When you say bad chemistry, meaning,
okay,
like,
I'm saying, was anybody else on this operation seeing any distraught women?
Oh,
or
absolutely not.
Did they look like they were being manipulated, abused, sexually harassed?
No.
I don't know, like shooken up over something maybe that's happening to them, but they don't want to tell anybody.
No,
Nobody saw that.
no. As you saw Celeste's demeanor in the video, that's her demeanor. That was her demeanor at the office, on trips, when we were all together, and very affable, happy. Of course, she had a lot of pressure on her because she was managing Tim's schedule and flights and so forth, because she's his executive assistant and communications with the PR firm, etc. But no, so suppression or depression or that she was trafficked, as she says, no, absolutely not.
Trafficked. Well, I mean, aren't you kind of trafficked anyway? I mean, that's the training to look like you're. Well, when you're out there, you might feel like, well, you're part of this. You're becoming it. So, of course, I would say, yeah, I was in a bad situation. Well, yeah, I felt it felt he put me in very dangerous situations. Yeah, that was a dangerous situation.
Yes, and
But
you chose to be there.
and you chose to be there. Didn't they
And you
all want to
chose
go
stay.
back? Like
Yes,
every one of them when it was all
yes,
said and done and over. And then when they
yes.
finally realized they weren't going to be able to be Tim's fake girlfriend anymore.
I don't
Money,
know,
money,
but
money, money.
I'm
Yeah.
learning that it's a big temptation. Um, so so each of these individuals is asking for 5 million each. So that's 5 times 6 is 30 million. I'm going to give you some comparative numbers. I hope these really stick out. Maybe you can put this statistic up, or this. I'm going to do the math for everyone. You can put this up. So the cost to rescue a child is about 2,000, depending on the operation, correct? Depending on the country and the expenses and the type of operation it is, but it's about 2,000. So if you were to divide 30 million, now I know all of that's wouldn't go to the women. I'm not saying they're going to get that money, but that's what they're asking for. And of course, attorneys take some of it. But that 30 million, we're just taking that figure that they've demanded. And we're dividing that by 2,000. That's 15,000 children. 15,000 children could be rescued with $30 million. And guess where that money's coming from, or would come from? OUR. So donors like myself who've donated, believing rightfully, correctly, that money is going to go to rescues. These women are demanding to have that money in their pockets as compensation for the wrongs that have been done to them. But who are the victims here? And this is probably the biggest point that I want to make. Who are the victims? Who loses in this situation? They're punishing Tim, they're punishing OUR, but they are punishing these children. 15,000 children is over double the amount of children that have been rescued that OUR has accounted for in 10 years. And in a day, from one day to the next, that money is asked for. I hope that because these women stated in their litigation, in these lawsuits, that they stated, and they stated in the press conference more accurately, that they just wanted to rescue children. I hope that every penny that they get, those who settle or who have settled, and those who are in this litigation, and maybe they'll reconsider and they'll just settle. But I hope whatever amount of money they receive, they put that money towards aftercare, rescue, reconnaissance, education, etc., to benefit children, adoption of children who are in vulnerable countries that are prone to trafficking. Because they'll never be made whole. Whatever offenses they feel have been done to them, whatever brokenness or feelings of, in their interpretation, abuse that they feel, that money is never going to make them feel whole.
Not at all. And you look at their faces when they're up there, they are conflicted in their minds and in their hearts. I can see it. I feel it. They know they're not doing the right.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I hope others see it too. And I hope people speak out about it. If their gut feeling is that this is not right, then they're right. It's not right. And I want to break this down too. So 15,000 children could be rescued, even if it was 10,000 children. And that would also translate, that $30 million would also translate to between 1,500 and 3,000 adoption grants. So the program that the special project that Catherine initiated and that I was the executive director over. And then I switched to strategic alliances, and then there was another executive over Children Need Families. But that special project, Children Need Families, gives grants to families in the adoption process who are adopting from countries where children are vulnerable to trafficking, not trafficked children who are rescued, but children who are vulnerable to trafficking and who are already in the adoption process. And then we give a grant to them that would fund up to 3,000 adoptions. And that's not going to happen because that money, if they get what they're asking, that money would go elsewhere. So I hope and pray that there's a better resolution, a better solution than this exorbitant and unfair demand for money, because it's not restitution money. It's not going to comfort them. And like I said, it's not going to make them whole. It's not going to make them happy.
Well, I don't think it was their idea, but they're going with it. It may not be their complete idea. I think they were gathered. I think they were brought together for a greater effort. You and I believe that there is a bigger effort to undermine Tim. I know that Tim knows there's a bigger effort to undermine him, and not just him. A lot of people think he's the only one being sued, but they know now they used to, but there's innocent people involved in this.
Yeah.
Well, Tim's innocent. They're all innocent. You're one.
Yes.
Now, Catherine?
Yes.
Fear. OUR. The whole, everybody.
Matt Cooper.
Cooper.
The board. Other entities, other individuals.
Just let's go after it all. Let's get the much money as we can. Yeah. And this is big, huge.